thing that I want to be discussing today is different styles of parenting. This is something I see a lot being talked about right now, especially. It's quite relevant because there's been a lot of backlash on this idea of gentle parenting. A lot of people are fed up with it. They think it's nonsense. And I think it's because it gets confused with permissive parenting. It's not the same thing. And I'll break down the different main styles of parenting. There are three main styles of parenting that I'll be speaking on today. I'm not saying those are the only, but the three main types, major categories, I guess, maybe four, I guess, but three main. First and foremost, one many of us are not unfamiliar with is authoritarian parenting. I'm glancing down at my phone because I made some notes, but I also want to read a little section from a book that I read on this that pretty much inspired me to talk about this because I thought it was so brilliantly put. What is authoritarian parenting? Well, like I said, most of us are very familiar with this style of parenting because it's how most of us were raised. If you are a millennial like me, or I guess Gen Z, especially Gen X and above, we were all raised like this. The authoritarian approach. Do as I say. Why? Because I said so. That's basically the easiest way I can summarize it. Nothing is clear. It's just a mess, and you're just demanding your kids to behave and be obedient and do as you say. And let me read again. I want to read to you what this says because I think it's summarized way better than I could summarize it. And if I forget, remind me where this book is from because I haven't read this book in like 2 months. So I forgot the title. And I hate not quoting people and things properly. So please remind me if I don't mention it by the end of this or put it in the description. Authoritarian parenting rules and demands are numerous, arbitrary, and rigid, and need no justification. Behavior is mostly shaped by punishment. Children's emotional needs are low priorities. Parental motivation is often that it's a tough, unforgiving world and kids better be prepared. Authoritarian parenting tends to produce adults who may be narrowly successful, obedient, conformists, often with an undercurrent of resentment that can explode, and not particularly happy. Moreover, social skills are often poor because instead of learning by experience, they grew up following orders. Again, this probably rings a bell for a lot of us. It's how we were raised, and it's unfortunate. I do not like this style of parenting. I think most of us know better than to raise our kids this way now. I think it's still around. I think a lot of people still believe in physical discipline and beating your kids and, that's going to get you to listen and behave. And sure, it works in the short term, but isn't the point of parenting long term? Isn't the point of it to have adults that can function properly? Because if it's just about the moment and getting your kids to listen, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of raising them to become functional, healthy, happy adults. The next parenting approach that I already briefly touched on is permissive parenting, which often gets confused with gentle parenting because people think they're gentle parenting, but really it's just permissive parenting. And permissive parenting is basically, as the name itself explains, you just allow your kids to do whatever, whenever, whatever they feel like. They're these little feral children that run around with unbrushed hair and unbrushed teeth, and they can behave however they want and scream and spit and draw on the walls and eat ice cream for dinner. This is a very extreme example, but really that's what permissive parenting is. But again, I'm going to read what this book says because it's way better phrased than my nonsense that I'm trying to spit out. Permissive parenting is summarized as follows. There are few demands or expectations. Rules are rarely enforced, and children set the agenda. Adult outcome. Well, you're going to have children who are self-indulgent, individuals with poor impulse control, low frustration tolerance, plus poor social skills thanks to living a consequence-free childhood. And then they also threw in neglectful parenting, which is why I said there was 4, which we all know what neglectful parenting is. You don't parent at all. You probably don't show up for your kid. You let them stay home alone. there's no parenting at all, which is even worse. It's sad to think that it can get worse than permissive parenting, but it can. Neglectful is always bad, and we don't even have to talk about the outcomes of that because we all know that's no bueno. Well then, we have some 2 or 3 pretty terrible options. Which one should you choose? Well, ideally none of those, because those all suck, and you're going to have adults, like we already covered, who aren't going to turn out so great. So what should you do instead? Well, a great alternative is authoritative parenting, not to be confused with authoritarian. So there's authoritarian, which we discussed. This is authoritative. What is authoritative parenting? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I think it's excellent. Authoritative parenting is essentially the middle ground of everything, right? And isn't that what it comes down to in life with everything? It's finding the middle ground, finding the balance between things of not abusing your kid, but also not neglecting them, right? It's about finding that balance. Again, I want to read to you what this says, because I think it's excellent. Authoritative parenting. Rules and expectations are clear, consistent, and explicable. I have a very hard time. I don't think I have I'm not dyslexic. I don't have dyslexia. Whatever. Maybe I do. But I do struggle with words when they're broken up. Like when there's a hyphen. I don't know. For some reason that my brain is like, what is this language? Explicable. That is the word. With room. Let me just start over. I don't know what I'm saying. Rules and expectations are clear. Parents welcome children's input, and you are allowing your children to develop their own autonomy, and yeah, great outcome. You have adults who are happy, emotionally and socially mature and fulfilled. They're independent and self-reliable as a result of being raised by parents who are clear with boundaries, expectations, and explain why something is important, not just because I said so. They explain, why do you need to do this? This is why we do this. Take care of your things. You need to brush your teeth because of this. Everything is clear and understandable. And again, like we read, there's room for flexibility in terms of including your child's opinion on things, but not letting them rule the household, because children don't know best in general, but they should have some autonomy. They should have some say-so in certain things, like the color of their socks, right? That's not going to affect, their life the same way as not letting them or allowing them not to brush their teeth. Well, we actually covered all the styles of parenting that I want us to talk about pretty briefly. Again, you can go into each of them in more depth, but I think we get the idea. Authoritarian, not so great. We all know this. This is what a lot of us are fighting against. A lot of millennial and Gen Z parents are now saying this is garbage. Let's not raise our kids like this. And as a response, what became on the rise was gentle parenting, which also is not great. Well, I don't know. I actually don't have a problem with gentle parenting if it's done correctly, if it's actually gentle parenting, where, again, it kind of ties into authoritative parenting. But I think the word gentle throws people off because it just sounds like, oh, I have to be very careful and be scared of my kid when I discipline them. And that's not what it is, right? It's just a more gentler approach than authoritarian. But again, I don't really like the word, so I don't really go with it. I don't know how I feel about it. But I guess it's not the worst. It's not the worst parenting style. We have to stop thinking about parenting as what's best in this moment versus what's best long-term. What is the long-term outcome of this? That doesn't mean every little moment needs to be perfect and you can never feed your kid mac and cheese and you can never yell at them. That's not what it's about. But consistently, those are not good things to do. We all know Kraft mac and cheese is not real food, but we all like it because it's part of our childhood and we are like, hey, we got to feed our kids this because it tastes good to us, right? But feeding your kid that every night is not great. Yelling and screaming at your kid every day, not great either, not productive. It's not going to get you to where you want to be. You're not happy. The kid's unhappy. But every now and then, we're human. You might lash out. You might yell and scream. And then, You take a deep breath, you calm down, you go back and explain to your kid, hey, I shouldn't have yelled at you. I was frustrated. You're not doing as I'm asking you to, yada, yada, yada. Explain yourself, right? Like, because we're all human and it's okay to catch yourself. It's okay to say, hey, I've been messing up and I need to go back. The hardest thing with this, like you watch shows like Super Nanny, she comes in and she straightens out all these crazy, rambunctious kids. And it's hard, and they have to be so persistent because they've been doing something a certain way for so long. Like, you've set the standard for these kids, and now you come in and say, no, all that's wrong. Now we got to change. Not impossible, and you should absolutely do it if it's things are that far gone and things are that bad, in bad shape. But it's a lot harder than, quote unquote, doing it right from the beginning. Again, I say right in quotations because there is no such thing as right, but there's, again, like I keep reiterating, there are better ways of doing things and not so great way of doing things. I wrote down in my notes, which I didn't say, as a result of authoritarian parenting, because I said so, the old school approach, beating your kids into obedience and screaming and yelling and making them eat soap and all kinds of craziness. I wrote, the outcome is you have adults who are afraid, who have no critical thinking skills and are obedient, which I see a lot, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad to see all these adults who struggle so much. And when you didn't have the greatest childhood or you weren't parented properly, it's like now you have to parent yourself, right? Now you have to undo all this work and you have to try to fix yourself, and in hopes that you can improve and give your children a better life. Ultimately, that's the important thing, is that you self-reflect and say, okay, these things work great. I'm glad my parents taught me this. I'm going to teach my kids that. That was great. But these things weren't so great, so I'm going to change that. Because you can't change everything in a generation. You can't say, well, my childhood was garbage, so I'm going to give my child the perfect childhood, because it rarely works out that way. You can't just fix everything, but become more intentional, open, and say, okay, where do I need to improve? What's most important? Okay, maybe I need to go to therapy. Maybe I need to heal from this trauma. Maybe I need to talk to this person and confront this fear, or whatever you need to do. And no one can tell you that. No one can tell you this is what you need to do. Well, actually, I take that back, because everyone will tell you what you need to do. But you can't listen to that. You have to listen to yourself, your inner voice, and say, what do I need to do? As long as you're not like a self-absorbed narcissist, because then you'll just be telling yourself that you're perfect and great and you don't need to change anything. But if you can really truly self-reflect on your life and say, this is what I need to change, or I'm not happy. I'm not a happy parent and my kids aren't happy. What do I need to do to change that? And maybe it is outside, I was going to say sources, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Outside things. Maybe there are things outside of your control, or things that are happening that are the reason. It's maybe not just the parenting approach that is the problem, right? Because this is all in an ideal world. You can ideally raise your kids in a well-rounded way that helps them grow up to be well-rounded and healthy, successful, productive, happy adults. But that's not always the case, especially if you're fighting for, I don't know, your freedom. Maybe you're caught up in some terrible situation with the law, and maybe you're on the run. That was not a great example. I don't know. There are different things that happen to people, right? Maybe you're trying to get out of poverty. Maybe you're just trying to survive. Maybe you're in a war situation. I mean, there's so many extreme, terrible examples where this isn't even a priority, right? It's just survival. But eventually, once you get out of survival mode, it's like you have to hand your kids tools on life. How are they supposed to cope when things are bad? Even if you are in survival mode, it's like, well, what's the best way to handle a problem, adversity, or strife? What's the best way to deal with things when they occur? There's so much thumping happening above me, and I really hope it's not being picked up on the camera, because it's really annoying. Like I already said, I can't tell you what that is. I don't know you, so that would be weird if I'm sitting here telling you, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to take a look at in your life. But also, even if I did know you, unless I knew you really, really, really well, I can't tell you. Like, I always tell my friends, because I have a lot of friends who come to me for advice, and I usually say, well, I don't give advice. I don't. Like, unless you're asking me something specifically, or you're saying, Nikki, I need advice on this, of course I'll share what I think and what I think will help you. But I'm also cautious of that because I don't know the outcome that you're looking for. So how can I give you advice? Maybe I'll give you advice on how to become rich. But if you're like, I'm not trying to be rich, I'm just trying to, by the way, I would never do that. But that was just an example. And then I give you advice on something that you're like, I was just trying to feed my kids. I wasn't trying to be rich. Or maybe I'm trying to give you advice on how to be fit and be in shape, but you're like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to live long enough to see my grandkids. I don't know, whatever the thing is. We can't sit here and dictate and tell people you should do this and be like this and do this. But I think most of us are on some kind of journey, and hopefully we're looking at ourselves as people who can improve and self-reflecting and saying, yeah, I could be better at this. Maybe I can watch my rage in traffic. I need to do that. I have terrible road rage. Actually, maybe I shouldn't say that. It's gotten better. I've gotten a lot better, but I used to. But I became aware of that, and I realized that's something I need to work on because I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be this person. I don't like how I feel, so I need to change that about myself. It's much harder to become an adult and realize all these things you have to teach yourself because your parents didn't teach you. And that's no shame to parents. Some of us have great parents. It's just they didn't give us everything we needed, or they were struggling themselves to get themselves out of a bad situation. You know, we all have other different situations that we're in, and things if you grew up like me, the type of parents I had, they shielded me from a lot because they were trying to give my brother and I a great childhood, so they didn't want to share certain things, or they were very kind of secretive about things and trying to not cover it up, that sounds bad, but just trying to shield us from the bad stuff or financial struggle or whatever it may have been, which is one approach. That's fine, but at the same time, kids are smart. They know something's going on. They might not know, but they understand enough to know that something's up. So maybe a better approach would be explaining it at an age-appropriate way. Try to say, hey, things are not great right now, but we're working on it. You don't have to worry. Because I think it's so silly. I use this example. It's a little extreme. But imagine you're standing in front of your kid and bombs are exploding in the background. Like houses are on fire. The world is falling apart. And you're looking down at your kid and going, oh no, just ignore that. That's just they're filming something. It's for a film set. It's not even real. Just say everything's fine. Everything's great. We're great. Yeah, that's phony. Come on, like any kid is gonna see through that because kids are smart. Kids are so much smarter than we think they are, and they can see through that. And they're going, yeah, I can see the destruction happening with my own eyes. Please don't gaslight me, Mom. You know. Again, that was a very extreme example, but then the question is, how do you explain it to your kid? Which I get. If they're little, you want to protect them. You don't want them to be scared and worried and have nightmares and have the same problems that adults do. I get that. But again, I think there's a way of saying things to kids with reassurance that it's going to be okay. You know, we're safe right now. We're okay. Mom and Dad are here to protect you. That's our job, or whatever you need to say. Yeah. This is a topic that's close to my heart. Like I said at the beginning, it's so important because, man, if we could just have a nation and a world of people who were raised right, we could have a great world. No wars, no problems, nothing. Things would just be great because everyone had a great foundation and start in life. I think a lot of problems stem from childhood. Almost all problems. Maybe not all, but majority of whatever problems adults have. It's something that came from their childhood that they either didn't deal with or they just do things the way they were raised and they didn't know any better. Whatever the reason is, they didn't take a look at their life and say, yeah, maybe this wasn't so great. It's funny, I feel like I didn't have a lot written down, but I knew I would end up talking a lot for this because I knew I had a lot to say. But that's all I wrote down. That's all I had. Of course, I could go into depth a lot more about this topic. There's so much to unpack. Like they always say, no kid comes with an owner's manual, or an instruction manual. What's the phrase? Whatever it is. Kids don't come with instructions on how to raise them. but I like to argue that, and I say they kind of do if you just do your research, especially now when information is so readily available. There's so much good knowledge out there. There are classes you can take. You can use AI as a great tool. Parenting books, talking to other parents, caregivers. I mean, there's just experience it yourself. If you want to be a parent, this is the one thing I would say on this is babysit. Like, if you're going to be a parent, actually spend time around kids. I can't tell you how many people I know who try so hard for a baby. They go through IVF, like they do anything and everything just to have a baby. And then once reality hits and the baby's here, they realize how hard it is, and they just pay anyone to raise it for them, or ask anyone just to take the kid away so they can just be left alone. And I'm like, well, what did you think it was going to be like? Like, you kind of have to start from scratch when you have a kid and teach them everything. And that's going to be a hard thing to do. There's a lot of reward in it. Kids are really cute and funny and adorable. And there's a lot of reward, but it's a lot of work too. It's a lot of work in every way, not just physically demanding, but time-wise. You have to work on your patience, and kids are going to take a little longer to put their shoes on because they've only done it a few times. You've done it 1,000, hundreds and thousands and millions of times in your life. A child has not done that. So everything is new for them, and everything takes time. So you have to work on your patience, and it's hard financially, everything. It's not an easy thing to do. But I do think more people need to think about it, which I think we are seeing now as a whole. More people are going, yeah, this parenting thing is not for me, which is to me a little sad, but at the same time, I also respect it. I will have way more respect for someone who says, I'm not capable of doing this. I don't have the mental stability. I have too much undealt with trauma. Whatever your reasoning is, I don't have enough money. Whatever it is, I respect someone more for saying that I can't do it versus someone who just, I don't care, I'm going to have a baby no matter what. And then they didn't really prepare as much as they should have. And then you have a kid that doesn't have their needs met. But my respect and my hat is always the words. I tip my hat. Is that, I don't know. Why am I always trying to be cool and use sayings? I never say these things. I never take my hat off. I don't even wear a hat. My respect is to those who do their best. That will always be someone that I respect. You're doing your best. You might not know what you're doing, but you're doing your best. And you're willing to learn and grow. Because we can all do that. Even myself. I'm sure one day if I become a parent, there will be things that surprise me. Even as prepared as I am, in a way, because I have so much experience. There's so many little things that I know about everything from taking care of a newborn to an older kid. I have so much experience in that, and I know all these little things that I can tell shocks parents for the first time. Like for the fact, or for example, newborns when they're first, that is a newborn. When they're first born, when they sleep, they haven't developed a part in their brain that essentially paralyzes you for when you sleep. Because when we sleep, most of us, we just sleep. Some of us talk and walk and do all this crazy stuff in our sleep. But newborns are loud sleepers. Sometimes they'll laugh and cry and move around, and you think they're awake because they're crying, but they're not. So a lot of parents rush to pick them up because they don't know that. So there are all these little things that you wouldn't know about, right? If you don't have the experience or you haven't sought out the information. But yeah, still, something's going to surprise you. Something, you can't prepare for everything is the point. But I do hear that a lot. Like, nothing can prepare you for parenthood. I've heard that so many times. Like, nothing can prepare you for being a parent. That's not true. That's just inherently, like, that statement in itself is not true. Nothing can prepare you. A lot of things can prepare you. Nothing can prepare you for everything. Maybe that's what people mean to say, because that would be accurate. Because, of course, you can't prepare yourself for everything. You don't know everything that life is going to throw your way. No one can prepare for anything and everything. It's not possible. But a lot of things can prepare you. Like I already said, books, videos, a lot of media out there. that you can consume and educate yourself on. Now I feel like I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to let you go. Enjoy your day. Do something for yourself today. Go get some air. Just go on a walk. Take a deep breath. Eat a good snack. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go eat something delicious because I'm starving. I'm just thinking about food. Enjoy your day. Take care of yourself. And I'll be back for more.